Hello and welcome to EVTN News. Today, there's several stories on Bishop Strickland and a few other stories about other stuff. But the Bishop Strickland news has sunk in, and a lot of people have reactions, and I'll probably get to some of that in a little bit. I can see the lighting. There we go. All right. Um, Okay, so U.S. Military Auxiliary Bishop Joseph Coffey will join Bishop Joseph Strickland in a rosary at noon. Okay, so presumably he joined him on November 14th and again on November 15th outside the Convention Hotel Marriott Waterfront in Baltimore, where the U.S. bishops are met last week for their autumn assembly. So one bishop kind of stood with Strickland, I guess you could say. He's a auxiliary for the military, so kind of an unknown, Bishop Joseph Coffey. But remember the name. I believe was this the guy who was saying like the Latin Mass outdoors in certain places? I don't know. I don't remember. But if he's standing with Strickland, that's more than a lot of the other bishops are doing. Uh, so Bishop Strickland wasn't the only one. So Francis's crackdown, if you remember, Francis targets certain bishops. Bishop Dominique Ray of France was targeted. Was it last year or even further back? He was banned from ordaining seminarians to the priesthood for over a year at least. And so Bishop Francois Touvet, I don't know, Chalons and Champagne. That's where he was the bishop of before, but this guy will become coadjutor bishop of Fréjus Toulon diocese, which Bishop Ray is currently the bishop. Bishop Ray is 71 years old, and it's Francis's way of eliminating him. Bishop Ray has many seminarians and a functioning diocese. And so the coadjutor bishop means that they will work simultaneously together until the retirement of the older bishop. And it's Francis's way of kind of stacking the deck, if you will, rather than wait till the bishop turns 75, then replace him. And he did this with Bishop Thomas Tobin in Providence. Is it Providence, Rhode Island, I think? He's known as the Good Tobin, not the Nutty Night Tobin. And he stood up for pro-life and just different things like that. But he was, as soon as he turned 75, he was out of there because he had a coadjutor bishop, and Francis appointed a coadjutor bishop to replace him. Same with Bishop Ray, but in this case, Bishop Ray is 71 years old, so he would presumably have 4 more years as bishop. But now with the coadjutor bishop, I think Bishop Ray is going to have very little say in what goes on in the diocese, especially in regards to ordaining priests. So this has been another Francis target. Strickland isn't the only one. Bishop Ray has been on Francis's radar for quite a while, and yeah, I think Bishop Ray was friendly towards Latin Mass communities, but anyway. All right, let's talk about the USCCB meeting. And so you would notice that I had one video about the USCCB, and in that I shared a few clips and gave some of my thoughts on it. And that was just the first day. Let's see here, the second day, well, I'll read you this and then I'll talk about my thoughts here. The USCCB voted, this was the vote tally, 225 to 11 on Wednesday to approve an introductory note to affirm that opposing abortion must remain the preeminent priority of Catholics in American elections. Wow, that's overwhelming. The Pillar reports that while the text of the note has not yet been officially released. It reads, this is the quote, "The threat of abortion remains our preeminent priority because it directly attacks our most vulnerable and voiceless brothers and sisters and destroys more than 1 million lives per year in our country alone." That's a pretty, I mean, I give them credit for supporting that, but it's basically unanimous. I mean, 11, I'm sure we can think of 11 bishops who would oppose that. Um, so that's why it was so surprising that there was such an overwhelming majority that approved that. Now, that actually wasn't, I don't think, as far as I could see, I don't know that that was part of the public, what would you say, the public live stream. I don't think it was. I didn't review it though, so don't quote me on that. Now, Wednesday at the end of the session, Archbishop Broglio, the president of the USCCB, called a, would you say, like an unscheduled meeting with some of the USCCB, like some of the USCCB executive committee. And I think it may have been for this, but I don't know what it was for. But regardless, that was a surprise. Now on the Wednesday live stream, it was, so some of the bishops talked about their experiences at the synod. Was that Wednesday or Tuesday? I forget. Everything blended together. I know for a fact that some of the good bishops, like Paprocki, Connolly, and Sample, talked about the Eucharistic revival in their diocese. A lot of bishops commented on that. And it was kind of just like, I didn't feel like there were any clips there that were necessarily worth posting because it wasn't super memorable. It was just like, okay, this is nice stuff, and and it was sort of conservative type of stuff, and for me though, they were kind of. It was kind of like, okay, but you really, the more you make the Novus Ordo like the Latin Mass, the more reverent it becomes. So they're kind of just evading the reality, the Francis reality. But yeah, that's sort of what they said. As far as I know, no one mentioned Strickland. Bishop Barron gave a presentation about, I think, mental health, and a lot of people commented on that. They're focusing on mental health, okay. What were the other things? There was one more, there were two more points there. Cardinal John Henry Newman, I think they wanted to vote to say they supported making him a doctor of the church, and that took up a lot of time. A lot of people commented on that, and I think the whole idea of doctor of the church and canonization of saints is kind of compromised at this point. So I didn't care, not really. I mean, he was just canonized as saint by Francis, so it's like, all right, and then they want to make him a doctor, and so I don't know. And then the last thing, I think on the agenda they talked about the ministry of catechists. I talked about this in previous videos. I don't know which ones, but it was in regards to Germany and how they're using that as like a pathway towards the women's priesthood, women's ordination, whatever. And the guy who was the bishop who was presenting on it didn't really talk about that much, and so I just kind of shut it off. So I lost interest. And I'm going to say, without Bishop Strickland, of course, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. There wasn't a whole lot of videos to post, and really not a ton of controversy, unfortunately. I think, you really need this controversy because these Francis bishops, they need to, people need to make it known that these Francis bishops are not welcome. Their ideas are absolutely not welcome. And, I don't think that's going to happen at the USCCB. No one said anything about Strickland as far as I know. It's just going to be more of the same. Oh, well, let's, Strickland talked about the Catholic faith, and we're just going to keep quiet because we don't want to, lose our bishop positions and all this stuff. Okay, so that's what it is. Now, the SSPX did comment on Bishop Strickland's removal. They say, here is what they say. It is important to note that relieving a bishop from office is a rare event normally motivated by grave errors. That does not appear to be the case here. Even if we ignore the results of the apostolic visitation, we must also note that Bishop Strickland has shown himself to be particularly incisive against the Synod on Synodality. He wrote a courageous letter appearing in August to warn his diocese of certain novelties incompatible with the faith that would be discussed at the Synod. Well, the leitmotif of the Synod was listening to all, and in particular to those who feel excluded. Bishop Strickland was entitled to treatment that could qualify as clericalist in the sense of an authoritarianism that the Pope has not ceased to exercise since the start of his pontificate. There are thus very distinct limits in the listening proposed. If we compare the treatment reserved for this bishop with that of priests and indeed of bishops whose doctrine is nothing less than defective, the injustice is even more blatant. It is truly tyrannical. I thought that was a good statement by the SSPX, and I don't know. Have they talked to Strickland? I don't expect him to join the SSPX. I'll just be the first to say it. If he does, I will report on it, but I don't. I would say, don't get your hopes up just yet. Thanks for joining me on the live stream, by the way. Okay, so the Archbishop Roger, oh boy, I'm never great at pronouncing names, but this one takes the cake. Huangbeji, Archbishop Roger Huangbeji of Cotonou, Benin, Benin, that's a country in Africa, for you geography enthusiasts. Anyway, I'll call him Archbishop Roger, no disrespect, I don't know, butchering his last name. He's 60 years old. He is denouncing liturgical abuses, especially in okay. So his October instruction now forbids, I'm just going to read this list, reading liturgical texts such as the responsorial psalm from a mobile phone, inappropriate movements during a liturgy, especially during the sign of peace, vague and abstract homilies, outfits that are brightly colored, conspicuously printed or too tight/short, ripped jeans, shocking tattoos, aggressive piercings, closing speeches at liturgies, especially at funerals, speeches by civil or military authorities or benefactors during liturgies, and tendentious, which means political songs or like propaganda motivated songs. So anyways, so what is this? Closing speeches at liturgies, so like eulogies at liturgies. But also the priest, you know how, if you've ever been to the Novus Ordo, a lot of the priests at the end of Mass, they'll give a long kind of discussion and everything. So closing speeches at liturgies, aggressive piercings. So you're not allowed, and this is Africa, so presumably, I don't know, are there some tribal people there in Africa? Shocking tattoos, ripped jeans. I'm sure there are some people there that aren't particularly wealthy, and so maybe jeans are all they can afford, but vague and abstract homilies. Inappropriate movements during the liturgy, especially the sign of peace. All right, so this guy's pretty good. I like him. I like that guy. Of course, African bishops, they have a reputation, and this guy's living up to it. So good for him. Not all of them. There are some that are favored by the Vatican that are preaching the gospel of environmentalism. So Cardinal Turkson is favored by Pope Francis, or at least he was at one point, and Cardinal Basungu was also he's kind of favored by Francis, and he's kind of said things about the Francis Church, and pretty cringe. All right. So, the big news today, the big news at this channel is what Bishop Strickland said on Raymond Arroyo's show. I believe it was World Over. I didn't watch the interview, but I have some quotes. And you can watch the interview, or if you did, tell me what you thought. U.S. Nuncio Pierre read to Strickland several pages of issues as to why he was removed, Strickland told EWTN. Pierre didn't mention a single administrative concern. The excuses given were, for example, a lack of fraternity with the other bishops, which amounts to I'm speaking up and they are not, Strickland said, adding that his relationship with the other bishops was cordial. Another issue was the fact that Strickland didn't implement Traditionis Custodes, even though the majority of diocesan bishops also ignored it, and which is pretty concerning. But anyway, concerning that Strickland was removed for it, but actually pretty encouraging that some of the other bishops ignored it. Strickland's social media presence was an issue where he spoke freely, following Francis' hypocritical encouragement to parrhesia as a successor of the apostles. Strickland said, I'm not attacking anyone. I love the church, Francis, and all the bishops. We should be working together. He noted that there are still many bishops in office. Listen closely. He noted that there are still many bishops in office who are corrupt and closely connected to the McCarrick scandal, but we've never really gotten answers about, and no action has been taken against them. The double standard is troubling. Wow. Sounds like he's been watching this channel, although I'm sure he hasn't. But if he were watching this channel for the last 5 years, then he would have heard this same thing. So thank you, Bishop Strickland. But the thing is, he's a bishop. I'm not. His opinion carries more weight by the nature of his office. And I'm glad he talked about the McCarrick Network, because what has been done to the McCarrick Network? Nothing. They've not gotten in trouble. They've gotten promotions. So that's it. Still many bishops in office. I don't think he has insider information into this stuff. He might have maybe a slight bit more information than just myself and anyone else who's just following this from a distance. I wouldn't say from a distance, but I have no contacts, and I would imagine that Strickland doesn't have a lot of insider information beyond what just random people have, random Catholics. But I'm so glad he I'm so glad he mentioned the McCarrick scandal. It's whenever I saw that, I was actually really glad to see that, because it sort of, I don't know, what would I say? It sort of confirms what I've been saying for the last 5 years, and spending time on this channel, it sort of gives me encouragement to what I've been doing. So that was really nice to see. All right. So Messa in Latino says, our sources in high places have told us that Francis has not been presiding the Eucharist on weekdays for some time. Francis comes to the Eucharist in the Sancta Marta chapel, but sits in the pews or in a chair while some priest presides. And if you say, if you see what JP2 did, then he was saying Mass when he was ill, like not doing well health-wise. Pope Francis just seems, I hate to say it, he seems kind of like a bitter old man and just kind of lost enthusiasm for a lot of things. His enthusiasm is for eco-theology and criticizing priests and criticizing young traditional priests. All right, so I'm going to be the latest to criticize Michael Lofton. So Reason and Theology used to be a good channel, but apparently Michael Lofton alienated all his friends, and now he just criticizes people. Michael Lofton. So watch Avoiding Babylon. Their show about Michael Lofton. It's pretty surprising the lengths that he goes to defend Francis after he joined, or well, took Catholic Answers money, from what I understand. So he criticized Bishop Strickland for accusing the Pope of heresy, and it looks like Michael Lofton signed a document in 2019 accusing the Pope of heresy. So Michael Lofton flip-flopped on this issue. He apparently flip-flopped on a lot of things. He turned on the trads, and but Avoiding Babylon, they looked at his recent videos and they were like, okay, so here's like, they looked at Michael Lofton's like 3 of his recent videos, like 3 in a row basically. Why Brian Holdsworth is wrong. Now Brian Holdsworth seems like a pretty humble guy. Even if you disagree with him, I feel like it's I feel like he's someone that is at least a genuine person, and I respect him even if I disagree with him. I think he's done really well with his YouTube channel. His graphics are far beyond far beyond this channel's graphics. I'm sure he has a little bit more of a budget to work with, but that's beside the point. He works, you can tell that he spends a lot of time on his videos, and he just really does a great job with that. But I mean, Michael Lofton just attacked him, and then Strickland or Brian Holdsworth kind of defended himself, and Lofton attacked him again, and that's what Lofton does. But the 3 videos in a row were why Brian Holdsworth is wrong, why Dr. Ralph Martin is wrong, why Taylor Marshall is wrong. And so he's just doing these 3-hour live streams on why these people are wrong. And I don't know why people actually watch that stuff. And quite honestly, this will probably be, I mean, unless someone says something in the comments, I hope this is the last time I ever talk about Reason and Theology on this channel again. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've not watched it. Like, I've watched his videos a few years ago, and those ones were really decent, especially when he was interviewing people. But I haven't watched this channel for quite a while, and don't even scroll through the comments. Apparently he deletes negative comments. I don't know. He blocks everyone on Twitter who disagrees with him. So that's not really the sign of someone who's very open-minded. And he attacks everyone who disagrees with him or who remotely questions Pope Francis. So not really a healthy Catholic YouTube channel. And there's other things I could say that Avoiding Babylon said, but I don't care. And at this point, I just felt like I'd throw that in and kind of do that thing. And oh, by the way, Church Militant apparently fired Christine Niles. Still waiting on that confirmation, but she removed Church Militant from her Twitter bio, I think, or her whatever social media bio. So it's kind of it's an unsurprising ending for an organization that really jumped hard on the abuse bandwagon in 2018, and then they ran out of stories, and so they started attacking Catholics, and it's ending up how most people expected. So I was always very careful what I said about them. It was hilarious though. So I had a video that criticized them attacking the SSPX several years ago. And they actually, after that, they ran a clip. Uh, they ran one of my video clips in their like week in their news segment or something like that. I was critical of the bishops, and I think I was saying like withhold the money from the bishops. And they did they did credit my channel. Someone pointed it out to me. I actually I thought that was hilarious because I was like, wow, I guess they kind of pick and choose clips because they didn't see my channel that criticized Church Militant. Now, that was actually what did you say, a toxic. Um, the comments were pretty toxic in that video, and I hate. I really don't want to turn off comments. I probably would have helped people be a lot more productive though if I turned off the comments, because it at one point I saw there were 200 comments on the video, and this video really didn't have like the number of views to warrant 200 comments. Like you'd think if it has say like 10,000 views, maybe you could see 200 comments. But the comments were basically just like people insulting each other. Like, all right, so one person supported the SSPX, the other person supported Church Militant, and so they were attacking each other, and eventually became like, you're a moron, no, you're an idiot, and like that's just back and forth and back and forth, and it's just not. It'd be a lot more productive if I would have shut off comments, and they could have gone to a different YouTube video and attacked someone else. And but at least not on my channel. I don't know. I didn't shut off the comments, by the way, so I don't. I'm not the comment police. It's not my responsibility, I don't think. But anyway, all right. Moving on to my last story I have is that, and you have to kind of see this. Well, not really, but you can click on the links in the video description, and the one is the last link. It's called LMNOP Funeral in Mexico. The vice president of the Mexican Bishops' Conference. Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Archbishop Gustavo Rodriguez Vega justified the draping of LMNOP flags on the coffins of an LMNOP activist and his partner during their funerals held in the Aguas Calientes, Aguas Calientes Cathedral, despite the scandal this has caused among the faithful. Now, this LMNOP activist or his friend or whatever, one killed the other by stabbing, and then killed himself. And so they draped LMNOP flags over the coffins. And this vice president of the Mexican Bishops' Conference said that that was fine. So, which is pathetic. He needs to resign. But this is what the Mexican Bishops' Conference has come to. I don't follow them, but that's pathetic. And really, they should have no authority, because this is essentially a public renunciation of the Catholic faith. I mean, really, think about it. Okay. Let's get to the comments. Thanks for commenting, everyone. This guy needs a lesson on accompaniment. The African bishop, right? Oh, Kansas City Royals fan. I'm trying to warn people away from the Reason and Theology channel. Well, eventually they'll realize it's not worth it. The one YouTube channel I've been following is, excuse me, Avoiding Babylon. I think they're pretty. I like a lot of their stuff. They're bringing on interesting guests, and they're kind of, what would I say, kind of goofy. Like, there is some time like that they waste. Like they tell, like, I don't know, maybe they're like telling jokes or watching dumb YouTube videos and reacting to it, and but with their guests on, they're kind of low key, but they've interviewed Michael Hitchborn a few times at least. I think I may have listened to one or two of his videos. it was really good. They interviewed Schneider, Bishop Schneider. Who else? Father Maudsley. I think Father Maudsley was the guy who left the FSSP because he said he wanted to like go all out and express his opinion, and he didn't want it to come back to hurt the FSSP. He said, I'm disassociating myself with the FSSP so that people don't think this is the opinion of the FSSP. So he's actually doing them a favor, but he's doing the church a favor as well because he's speaking out against all of this craziness that's going on. But they interviewed Father Maudsley, and I think they're going to interview him again. And I like his stuff. I don't know. I like what he has to say. He's from, is it England, maybe? Not sure. But anyway, that's it for the chat. Okay, well, this has been EVTN News. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.